Good evening and salutations, my Gage fans. Okay, I cannot be the only person that just thought it was really out of pocket watching Leisel and Spinelli teach a 9-year-old or a 10-year-old how to throw a goddamn axe. I cannot be the only person that's just like, why are we doing this again? I just want to start off by saying that. Okay, so I want to get into Carly for a minute. Okay, I want to get into Carly for a minute. I remember somebody sat there and I'm not going to say names, accused me of bashing Carly. I always find this excuse. First of all, let's be very clear about something. I don't bash characters. I criticize characters. When people sit there and say that I'm bashing a character, it's usually coming from a source of emotions. It's never coming from a place of logic. But whatever. And then second of all, I mean, the girl just gives me new reasons almost every time to sit there and call her out for something. And huh. Okay, so there's a point where she's talking to Jason about Britt and everything and possibly seeing her alive. And, Carl's like, I don't know. I mean, she died and everything like that. So they talk about that for a little bit, right? And after Lucas found Marco, which we're going to get to into a second, she goes and she confronts Carly. And he's like, he goes and confronts her. And he's like, listen, I need a favor for you or whatever, right? So they go there to the hotel, whatever. And there's a point, I don't know, I don't remember if this before or after, but they're talking about Marco and, you know, what Sonny and Jason did to her and everything. And, there's this war back and forth between Sitwell and Sonny. And Carly's kind of like, well, we just don't know how deep or how involved that Marco is with Sitwell and stuff like that. And, the way she tries to make it seem is like basically what Lucas said. Like, so what are you there saying that he's, fair game or whatever? It's kind of like, well, you know what Sitwell does. Sitwell's a bad person. He does this, that, and the third. And I'm kind of just like, this is so out of pocket because you sat there and prayed for your son every day for him to live, for him to be better. And I'm surprised she wasn't more angry at Sonny just for the fact that her son once again got caught up in a crossfire with Sonny. But for her to practically make it seem like, well, you know how Sitwell is, and like it was just so very. First of all, it was very complicit as hell, but it was so cavalier. Like, well, it's Sitwell's son. I'm like, so the next time something like that happens to Michael again, are you gonna have that same cavalier attitude? Because we all know that she wouldn't. But for her to sit there and be so dismissive about it was like, wow, you are such a goddamn hypocrite. I get it. She doesn't like Sitwell. Dude came to the house with guns and everything like that, took Sasha. Okay, fine. I get it. You don't like Sitwell. But Marco didn't do anything. Marco is just a son of a very bad man. And people can sit there and question the same thing about Sonny with Michael. Hell, there was one point in time where briefly Michael took over the business. But still. Okay, so let's get into Portia and Willow for a minute. So Portia, lays out, hey, listen, this is who Drew is. He's gonna sit there and he's been blackmailing me. He's gonna make Michael look like a dope head or whatever, just to get your kids back. And she just is not phased by that. And at this point, Portia's like, I don't even know who I'm like looking at this point. Of course, Willow goes into Nell mode and practically blame Michael for everything. This is all his fault. I'm sorry that you have an issue. You and your husband had a history with Drew and everything like that, but this is Drew is the only person I can trust. Drew's the only person in my life, and this, that, and the third, and it's just like it's all gone. It's just like whatever was there, it almost felt like invading the body snatchers or something like that. Like she just was just not there at that point, and she wanted to call Nina, and she's like, "Yo, I don't know what Drew did to that girl, but she is not the same person that I met. That was a nurse and everything like that. Like I don't know who I'm sitting there talking to." Now Nina was at Drew's place, and she practically accused him of being the one that was messing with Sasha's baby and everything like that, and the reason why she's left. And Drew's like, whoa, 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 whoa. I mean, I would never do something like that. I wouldn't sit there and use a child or a baby or anything like that. I was like, but you had no problem sitting there using a child to get your way. You had no problem crushing essentially your nephew's spirit just to drive a wedge between Michael and Willow to get what you want. So, I mean, don't sit there and try to act like you're so outraged. Like, I would never do something like that, broski, please. Let's not go there. But I guess Nina believes him. And at some point, when Willow comes over and he sits there and thinks about what Nina said, somebody that can get in the house undetected, that can get past the cameras and stuff. He asks her, hey, what was you sitting there doing July 4th? And she's like, oh yeah, I went to go visit my mother, or whatever, for a drink or whatever. I was so tired from her. Damn well he didn't believe that. Now, in a sense, when when Spinelli was sitting there talking to Willow, when Spinelli was sitting there talking to Leisel, Leisel was like, I've been gone for a while, and I come back, and it's like Willow has just been like, I don't even know who she is at this point. She is so out of pocket, pretty much. And Spinelli defends her in a sense, like, listen, she's been through a lot. She's kind of been through hell, and maybe some people just need to mind their own business. Um, they talk for a little bit, and he goes to Drew's place, and it was interesting in a sense, right? Because I was thinking about this before I started recording. Listen, we all get that Drew is he's a scumbag. Okay, let's just be real. He's a scumbag. But before they twisted Drew into this version that I don't even recognize, he was played by Billy, and I remember, when Billy first took on the role of Jason, and at that time he was Jason. Spinelli was ride or die with him, right? And then Steve comes back, he takes over the role, and their friendship, Drew and Spinelli at the time, their friendship was just not existent at that point. And it kind of sucked a little bit because I don't know, I like their friendship. So, in a sense, to kind of see him come over and just hanging out and talking and stuff like that, I liked it. I like the idea of it. But at the same time, this is a different Drew, and he's playing him in a more monstrous kind of way. So I was a little kind of perplexed about that whole thing. Like, I don't know how to feel because it did kind of suck that their relationship did end. Spinelli was like, listen, just because Jason's back doesn't mean anything has to change between me and you. And clearly it did because we really did not sit there and see much scenes with those two again. Um, But yeah, Drew now thinks that Willow was the one that was messing with Sasha and the baby and stuff like that. Which I mean, in all reality, it's not like you're like, oh my god, I can't believe you did that. That's so despicable. I mean, of course, what he did was also despicable. So he's not exactly one to, you know, yeah. Now, at some point after Leisel leaves the Hatchet place, she goes to the Metro Court, where she knows that Rocco works there. And Rocco is not there talking to Jason and talking about his chat with Liesel and how, she kind of shed some more light on who Britt was and wasn't just this monstrous, horrible human being. And so while they're talking, Liesel walks over and, kind of grabs his attention and, um, they start talking over there about a pool and stuff. And while that's going on, Spinelli informs Lulu that Liesel's back and everything like that. So at some point, she calls Dante and, gets him away from the police station. It's not like he was able to really do anything. I mean, all he was doing was that they're just watching a very unorthodox conversation, if we're going to be honest, and we get to that in a second. But he left, right? And he came over to the Hatchet place, and Lulu was like, yo, listen, Liesel's back. I don't want her nowhere near our son and everything. So they go to the Metro Court, and, they find the two there hanging out, taking selfies, and they practically sit there and tell her to kick rocks. Like, yo, you can leave, don't come back or whatever, don't, go anywhere near our son. So she leaves, and, before she leaves, she's like, just to keep in mind, you do realize that the only reason why this little one is here is because of my daughter. So just saying. So she leaves, and Rocco, I knew that Rocco was going to be upset. And Rocco said exactly what I was originally thinking. Listen, we get it. You don't like Liesel. You don't like Obrick. I mean, you don't like Obrick, and you don't like Britt. I get that. But at the end of the day, your feelings towards her are your feelings. They're not my feelings. You know? And again, this is what Lulu was there saying, Jason. Well, don't confuse him from our version of what we told him. And I'm like, that I'm not gonna sit there and say that's brainwashing, but it's a pretty out of pocket thing for you to just sit there and tell your son one thing and just practically sit there and say, well, that's the only version that he needs to know. It feels out of pocket. Like, let him sit there and decide on how to feel about Britt instead of sitting there practically forcing him to believe in what you believe. Um, Now let's get to this weird interrogation thing. So Turner was not there, questioning Sonny about Marcos and everything. Sitwell comes in there, and Turner brings Sonny out. This is after Dante was not there talking to Sonny for a little bit. And, she brings him out into, like, the whole squad room or whatever. And she's like, hey, listen, Sitwell has a couple of questions or some stuff he wants to sit there and say. But when they get out there, Sitwell says everything except for, hey, just let you know, this man right there, yeah, he kidnapped my son and has forced me to do things that I don't want to do. All he does is allude to, well, certain parties are like he tells his whole spiel and it has nothing to. It's like he's saying everything except what he should be saying. That's the long story short. And in a sense, you're kind of just like, what is even the point of this, right? So Lucas, he has the key. He goes to the warehouse, and at first I was like, oh, you're not going to find Marcos, and of course he found Marcos. So he finds Marcos. He rescues him and everything like that. And for just a whole, like, I guess an hour, because it must have took that long. Sitwell saying everything except what he should be saying, and Turner's like, so, like, are you saying that this man has something to do with your son abduction? I mean, we want to help, but we need you to sit there and say the words. and he doesn't say anything until Marco comes over, and pretty much just lies to Turner about where he's been. He's been in a ditch and he fell or some crap like that, and he slept for like 2 days or something, and now he's fine. And he leaves, and Sitwell leaves, and I'm just like, did Sonny just let him go? Because if it, what was the point of that? What was the point of that? I don't get the point of just letting him go because like he has to know how retaliation works. And Sitwell said, once my son is safe, that is pretty much his ass. So you let him go, and now you don't have leverage. And I see in the previews, Carly's like, so does that mean our family is safe now that Marcos is back with his father? I'm like, no, that's the exact opposite because the fact that you had him kept your family alive. Unless what he just put the fear of God in them and be like, oh, well, I can get to your son anytime that I want. Because I would imagine it would be massive retaliation against. So I don't understand. And if he didn't let him go, then who did? And if he did, why? You know what I'm saying? Like that whole part was just like, and what was the point of letting him go? I don't even get that. I don't think that he fully got. Yes, he got him to back down from the funding and everything like that. But what makes him think that he can't just pick that back up and be like, okay, well, you know, now that I got my kid back, so I can sit there and do that campaign, sit there and get your ass out of Port Charles. I'm not fully understanding what was the point of that. Like, yeah, I don't understand that. I really don't. We'll talk more about it tonight, but yeah, I have no idea what he did that for. And yeah, now Jason thinks that Britt is alive. Carly doesn't, but the thing is, Carly said to Jason, the last person who saw Britt alive was Leisel. So, you know, now Jason's gonna be sitting there talking to Leisel about what's going on with Britt. I feel like that's pretty much about it. Um, I might have missed some stuff here or there, but that's the general gist of the episode. I guess in a sense, this is almost another filler. Like, you know, things are gonna go down. Like I said in my stream, between tomorrow and Friday. There's just a lot of unanswered questions, and I needed to make some sort of sense. Like I do. I don't know if they wrote themselves into a corner. That's why a key just magically appeared, you know, with Lucas, and Lucas is able to sit there and find Marcos. Why would Sonny just let him go? Um, yeah, that's pretty much all I got. I'll see y'all in tonight's stream.